History is filled with silent monuments and forgotten devices that defy everything we think we know. This journey explores 20 ancient mysteries modern science still cannot explain, revealing a past far stranger than any textbook suggests. By the end, you will see human history not as a simple timeline, but as a captivating puzzle missing crucial pieces. We will encounter a 2,000-year-old astronomical computer and a vanished colony that left only a single carved word as a clue. These are not just curiosities. They are profound challenges to our understanding of ingenuity and memory. What do you believe is the greatest secret still buried by time? That corroded lump recovered from a shipwreck was far more than a curiosity. When researchers finally began to carefully clean and study the object decades later, complex machine. The mechanism, as it came to be known, is a hand-powered device made of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case roughly the size of a large shoebox. Its front and back were covered in finely inscribed dials and pointers. This was not a tool for warfare or simple timekeeping. It was a sophisticated model of the cosmos. By turning a hand crank, an ancient user could calculate the positions of the sun and moon, predict lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the cycles of athletic games like the Olympics. The precision of its gearing, including a differential gear previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century, is what truly stuns modern engineers. It demonstrates a conceptual leap into mechanical simulation that seems to belong to a different era entirely. So who could have possibly designed such a thing? While no maker's signature has been found, the knowledge required points to the great minds of the Hellenistic period, perhaps inspired by the legendary inventor Archimedes himself. The most haunting question isn't really about its brilliant creator, however. It's about everything else that must have been lost. Was this device a unique masterpiece, a one-off wonder built for a wealthy patron or a temple? Or was it merely one example of a forgotten tradition of ancient precision engineering, a technology that vanished when its supporting civilization fractured? The mechanism forces us to confront a humbling possibility. What we call the peak of ancient science might just be the fragmented ruins of a much higher summit, one that eroded away long before our modern world began to climb. Yet that single surviving machine pales in comparison to a mystery built on a truly monumental scale. To stand before the Great Pyramid of Giza is to feel a profound sense of temporal vertigo. This is not merely an old building. It is a mountain crafted by human hands, a geometric perfections carved from the living bedrock of the desert. Constructed over a span believed to be around 20 years, the pyramid required the quarrying, transportation, and precise placement of approximately 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks. The average weight of each block is 2.5 tons, with some of the massive granite slabs in the king's chamber weighing closer to 80 tons. The numbers are so vast they become almost meaningless. How do you move a fleet of stones heavier than elephants across miles of sand, and then lift them hundreds of feet into the air with perfect alignment? Mainstream archaeology presents a compelling picture of a highly organized society using known technologies. The prevailing theory involves a massive, skilled workforce, not enslaved people, but likely farmers working during the Nile's annual flood season when their fields were underwater. They would have used copper tools, wooden sledges, and immense earthen ramps that spiraled around the growing structure, hauling blocks on lubricated pathways. The precision, however, is where the theory meets its greatest challenge. The pyramid's base is a near-perfect square, with sides aligned to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west with an error of less than 1/15 of a degree. This astronomical and geometric accuracy, embedded in a structure 480 feet tall, suggests a depth of knowledge about the Earth itself that seems extraordinary for its time. The internal architecture adds another layer of enigma. The so-called air shafts emanating from the king's chamber point directly toward specific stars important in Egyptian cosmology. Were they spiritual pathways for the pharaoh's soul, or evidence of a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics? The absence of any contemporary engineering plans or definitive construction records from that era is a silent void at the heart of this achievement. It allows for endless speculation about lost methods, from advanced lever systems to the controversial idea of casting the stones in place using a form of ancient concrete. The real mystery of the Great Pyramid may not be a question of brute force, but of lost knowledge. It challenges the linear narrative of human progress, forcing us to wonder if the ancients possessed a different kind of genius, one rooted in a deep, intimate harmony with mathematics, the stars, and the very land they built upon. What we see as an impossible construction project, they may have seen as a sacred act of aligning heaven and earth, an equation written in stone that we are still learning how to read. But if the pyramid represents a civilization's dialogue with the heavens, then Stonehenge feels like a whispered conversation with the earth itself. On the vast, windswept Salisbury Plain in England, the massive sarsen stones stand in their silent, weathered circle, a haunting silhouette that has captivated and confounded for thousands of years. Constructed in stages between around 3000 and 2000 before the Common Era, this is not a single monument but a palimpsest, a site built, altered, and used over countless generations. The sheer scale of the undertaking is staggering. The largest sarsen stones, local sandstone slabs, weigh up to 50 tons each and were dragged from quarries over 20 miles away. Yet the greater puzzle lies with the smaller bluestones. Geological analysis reveals these distinctive spotted dolerite rocks originated in the hills of Wales, a journey of over 150 miles. Imagine the sheer will required to move dozens of these multi-ton stones across rivers, through forests, and over mountains, using only Neolithic technology of ropes, rollers, and sheer human effort. This was not a practical undertaking in any conventional sense. It was an act of profound intention. So what drove them? For centuries, the most compelling theory has cast Stonehenge as a prehistoric astronomical observatory. The alignment of the central axis with the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset is too precise to be coincidence. For an agricultural society, tracking the sun's journey was a matter of survival, marking the seasons for planting and harvest. Perhaps the great, those iconic doorways of stone-framed celestial events, turning the cosmos into a sacred spectacle. Yet recent archaeology suggests a more complex, layered purpose. The landscape around Stonehenge is now understood to be part of a vast ritual complex. A short distance away lies Walls, a massive settlement of timber circles and houses that appears to have been a place for the living, while Stonehenge itself, with its numerous burial mounds and cremated remains found on site, was likely a domain for the ancestors. Leading researcher Mike Parker proposes a powerful duality of stone versus wood and life versus memory. The permanent, enduring stone circle may have served as a monument to those who came before, a permanent memorial linking the community to its lineage and the eternal cycles of the sun and moon. Other theories propose it was a center for healing, with the bluestones believed to hold curative powers, drawing pilgrims from across the land. The truth is, these purposes are not mutually exclusive. Stonehenge likely served all these functions and more across its long history. It was a calendar, a temple, a cemetery, and a symbol. Its enduring mystery is not a lack of clues, but an overabundance of meaning. It symbolizes humanity's ancient, universal drive to create order from chaos, to mark our place in time, and to build something enduring that speaks to forces far greater than ourselves. The stones do not yield a single answer because they were meant to hold many, a silent, sturdy prayer etched into the landscape of England. That drive to create order and meaning extends far beyond the stones of England, reaching across an ocean to one of the most visually arresting enigmas on Earth. In the stark, rainless expanse of southern Peru, the desert holds a secret invisible to anyone standing within it. The ground here is a palette of dark, sun-baked pebbles overlying a lighter clay soil. Sometime between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, the people performed a simple yet monumental act. They meticulously moved these dark surface stones, carving through the desert's skin to expose the pale earth beneath. From ground level, the result looks like little more than shallow, wandering pathways etched into the plain. But ascend to the vantage point of a nearby hill or a modern aircraft, and the entire landscape transforms. What seemed like random trails resolves into a breathtaking gallery of colossal art. Straight lines, some over 30 miles long, run with arrow-straight precision across the desert floor. Geometric shapes like trapezoids, triangles, and spirals sprawl for acres. And most astonishing of all are the biomorphs, the intricate drawings of animals and plants. A hummingbird with a beak longer than a football field, a spider with perfectly proportioned legs, a monkey with a spiraling tail. A whale, a dog, a tree, hands. These are not crude sketches. They are masterpieces of proportion and line, executed on a scale that defies human perception. The how of their creation is understood in principle. Using simple tools and careful planning, teams could have laid out the designs with ropes and stakes, clearing the stones to create the contrasting lines. The dry, windless climate of the region has acted as a perfect preservative, keeping the glyphs intact for well over 1,000 years. But the why remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles. What compelled an ancient culture to invest such immense effort into creating art they could never fully see? One prominent theory suggests the lines were ritual pathways, walked by participants during ceremonies to invoke life-giving water from the gods in an arid land. The animal figures might have represented constellations or deities. Another idea posits they were a giant astronomical calendar, with the lines pointing to celestial events on the horizon related to the agricultural cycle. Yet another perspective views them as sacred offerings meant for the eyes of the deities themselves, who were believed to dwell in the sky. The lines could have been a form of prayer, a desperate and beautiful message inscribed on the earth for the heavens to read. The most haunting aspect of the lines is this intentional shift in perspective. They represent a leap from the human-scale world into a realm of the symbolic and the cosmic. The creators had to hold the completed image in their minds, trusting in a geometry they could not verify, for a viewer they could not be. It speaks to a worldview where the spiritual and the practical were seamlessly woven together, where pleasing the gods was as concrete a need as finding water. In a way, these desert drawings are the ultimate act of faith, a testament to the human desire to make a mark so large and meaningful that it transcends the individual and even the community. To communicate with the universe itself, while the lines are a message written across a landscape, the next mystery is a message locked inside a book, one that has every attempt to read it. In a library at Yale University rests perhaps the world's most famous unintelligible text, the manuscript. This peculiar book, discovered by antique book dealer in 1912, is a small volume of about 240 vellum pages, filled from edge to edge with graceful, looping handwriting in an alphabet that matches no known language on Earth. Its pages are also crowded with strange and beautiful illustrations. There are drawings of plants that seem both familiar and utterly alien, with bulbous roots and leaves that do not correspond to any known botany. There are circular diagrams of celestial bodies with unfamiliar constellations, intricate networks of tubes and vessels that look like biological or alchemical charts, and numerous small paintings of nude female figures bathing in or connected to these strange green, pipe-like systems. The entire work feels like a scientific or medicinal textbook from a parallel universe. Carbon dating confirms the vellum was prepared in the early 15th century, placing its creation firmly in the medieval period. This authenticity makes its impenetrability all the more maddening. For over a century, the world's top cryptographers, including codebreakers from both world wars who cracked military ciphers, have turned their skills to the. Linguists have analyzed the script's patterns, finding it has the statistical properties of a real language, with word lengths and character repetitions that follow natural rules. Yet no one has ever found a reliable key. Computer scientists have employed artificial intelligence, searching for links to known languages from Latin to Ukrainian, but no consistent translation has emerged. The theories about its origin are as varied as its puzzling illustrations. Some believe it is an encoded recipe book for alchemical processes, its strange plants and baths representing secret chemical procedures. Others propose it is a treatise on a forgotten form of herbal medicine or gynecology, with its unique flora and female figures. There is even a compelling argument that it could be a constructed language, a philosophical or artistic creation meant to document a personal, private universe of thought. The hoax theory persists, suggesting a clever forger like the 16th century mystic Edward could have created it to sell to a wealthy patron like Holy Roman Emperor II. Yet the statistical complexity of the text and the confirmed age of the materials make a simple hoax seem less likely. The manuscript is more than a curious artifact. It is a direct challenge to our modern arrogance. In an age where we can sequence genomes and send probes to the edge of the solar system, here is a book from just 600 years ago that we simply cannot read. It represents a complete breakdown in communication across time. We can see the care and intention in every drawn leaf and every neatly penned line, but the mind that created it and the knowledge it sought to preserve are utterly silent to us. It is the ultimate locked door in the house of history, and its silence asks a haunting question. How much other knowledge, other ways of seeing the world, have vanished not with a bang, but with the gradual fading of a language that no one living remembers how to speak the silent glyphs of, are a riddle meant for the sky, but a different kind of silence haunts the shores of the New World. In the late 16th century, a bold and precarious venture unfolded across the Atlantic. A group of just over 100 English men, women, and children, led by Governor John White, landed on Roanoke Island, a sliver of land off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They came to establish a permanent foothold, a community they named the of Raleigh. Among them was Governor White's own daughter, Dare, who soon gave birth to a baby girl named Virginia, the first child of English parents born in the Americas. Their story was meant to be one of triumphant beginnings. Instead, it became the continent's oldest and most enduring ghost story. Supply challenges forced Governor White to sail back to England later that same year, leaving the settlers behind with a promise of a swift return. History, however, had other plans. War with Spain delayed his voyage for 3 long years. When he finally stepped back onto Roanoke Island in the year 1590, he found a scene of profound and eerie abandonment. The settlement's wooden fort and houses had been carefully dismantled, not destroyed. There were no signs of a struggle, no hastily discarded belongings, and no graves that could be found. The entire population had simply vanished. The only clues were two cryptic carvings. On a post of the fort's entrance, the word Croatoan was carved in capital letters. On a nearby tree, just the letters CRO. These were not panicked scratches. They were deliberate, placed where White had agreed they should be left if the colonists chose to relocate. Was the name of a nearby island, now known as Island, and also the name of the Native American people who lived there. This should have been a clear message. Yet a sudden storm and trouble with his ship's crew prevented White from sailing the short distance south to investigate. He returned to England, and no Englishman ever made meaningful contact with the lost colonists again. Their fate dissolved into legend. The most plausible theory, supported by later English explorers, accounts of meeting Native Americans with gray eyes or who spoke some English, is that the starving settlers peacefully integrated with the people or other friendly local tribes, assimilating over generations. Other possibilities suggest a split, with one group attempting to sail back to England and being lost at sea, and another moving inland, perhaps facing hardship later. The complete lack of evidence for conflict at the site is what makes the mystery so compelling. It suggests a planned departure, not a sudden catastrophe. The story of the lost colony is more than a historical puzzle. It is a foundational American myth of vulnerability and uncertainty. In the empty fort and those two carved words, we see the terrifying fragility of early ambitions in a vast, unknown land. It represents the moment a hopeful narrative collided with an indifferent wilderness, and the resulting silence has echoed for centuries. We are left to wonder about Virginia Dare, that first English child, and whether she grew up to build a new life in a world her grandfather could never have imagined. Her origin story rewritten by the forest and the sea. The silent disappearance of an entire colony stands in stark contrast to a mystery built not on absence, but on an overwhelming, stone-carved presence. On one of the most isolated islands on Earth, giants stand guard. Easter Island, is a speck of volcanic rock in the vast emptiness of the southeastern Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent. Its shores are not marked by soft sand, but by the stern, watchful faces of the. Nearly 900 of these monumental stone statues are scattered across the landscape, carved from compressed volcanic ash between the years 1250 and 1500 of the Common Era. They are not uniform soldiers. Each possesses a distinct character, with heavy brows, elongated ears, and sharp noses, some crowned with cylindrical red stone topknots called. They average 13 feet in height and weigh around 14 tons, as much as 2 full-grown elephants. But their scale is not the deepest mystery, it is their journey. These giants were born in a single quarry inside the volcanic crater of. There, master carvers used simple basalt stone picks to painstakingly free the figures from the mountainside. Dozens of in various stages of completion still lie there, frozen in the act of being born, as if the workers simply laid down their tools one day. The most haunting question is how the finished statues, some weighing up to 82 tons, were transported miles across the island's rugged, hilly terrain to their permanent ceremonial platforms, known as ahu, which line the coastline. For decades, the prevailing theory involved log rollers and sledges, a method that would have consumed enormous quantities of the island's precious timber. This idea fed a powerful and cautionary narrative of ecological collapse, a story of a people who cut down every last tree to move their statues, only to doom their society to starvation and conflict. Recent experiments, however, have revealed a more elegant and astonishing possibility. Researchers and local teams have demonstrated that, with its carefully designed center of mass and curved base, could actually be made to walk. By using 3 sets of ropes, teams could rock the statue forward, tilting it from side to side in a controlled, upright shuffle across the landscape. This method, which some oral traditions had hinted at, would require far fewer resources and fewer people than previously thought. It suggests a profound engineering intuition, a way of cooperating with the statue's own form to make the impossible seem almost graceful. Yet even if we understand the how, the why remains powerfully moving. They are widely believed to represent ancestors. Once erected on their Ahu platforms with their backs to the sea, they were not facing outward to ward off invaders. They were turned inward, their solemn gazes fixed upon the villages and fields of the living. They were eternal guardians, embodiments of lineage and authority, watching over their descendants. The largest, most elaborate Ahu with the tallest statues likely signaled the power and prestige of the clan that built it. In this light, the statue transport was not just a technical challenge. It was a sacred procession, a communal act of faith and identity that physically connected the ancestral quarry to the clan's home territory. The true enigma of Easter Island is not a riddle of recklessness, but one of profound belief and resilient ingenuity. It is the story of a small community, utterly alone in a boundless ocean, who responded to their isolation by raising giants from the earth, not as a plea for rescue, but as a declaration that they were here. They remembered and they belonged, yet the silent giants of Easter Island stand as a tangible mystery, their stone forms rooted in a real, if isolated, world. Our next enigma, however, exists almost entirely within the realm of story, a haunting idea that has outlived empires. It begins not with a spade, but with a pen, in the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato. Around 360 years before the Common Era, in his dialogues, Plato described a powerful and advanced island nation called Atlantis. He portrayed it as a naval power of immense wealth and sophistication, lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar. This civilization, according to the story told to the Athenian lawgiver Solon by Egyptian priests, had grown arrogant and morally corrupt. As punishment, the gods sent earthquakes and floods, causing the entire island to sink beneath the waves in a single day and night of misfortune. For Plato, this was likely a philosophical device, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and the ideal of a virtuous state, which he contrasted with the fate of Atlantis. He was crafting a moral parable, not writing a history book. Yet the vividness of his description, with its concentric rings of water and land, its grand canals, and its sudden, catastrophic end, proved too compelling to remain mere allegory. The human mind craves a map for every story, and so the search for a real Atlantis began. Scholars have debated for centuries whether Plato was weaving a distorted memory of an actual historical disaster into his narrative. The leading candidate is the catastrophic volcanic eruption on the island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, around the year 1600 before the Common Era. This event, one of the largest in human history, devastated the sophisticated Minoan civilization on nearby Crete with tsunamis and ashfall. The parallels are striking, a powerful seafaring culture brought low by a geological cataclysm. Yet Thera did not sink entirely, and its location does not match Plato's geographical clues beyond the Strait of Gibraltar. This mismatch has fueled a relentless tide of theories, each placing the lost continent in a new corner of the globe. Some have looked to the Caribbean, suggesting the Bahamas or even Antarctica. Others propose locations in the Mediterranean, the North Sea, or off the coast of Spain. Expeditions have been launched, sonar maps scrutinized, and satellite imagery analyzed, all chasing a shadow. The stark truth is that, despite over 2 years of searching, no verifiable archaeological evidence has ever been found to confirm Atlantis as a physical place. So why does the legend endure with such tenacity? It speaks to something profound in the human psyche. Atlantis represents the archetype of the lost golden age, a symbol of a higher wisdom that was achieved and then tragically forfeited. It taps into our fear of societal collapse and our awe of natural forces far beyond our control. The story is a vessel for our anxieties about our own civilization's trajectory and our longing for a forgotten past. In a way, Atlantis is the ultimate historical mystery, precisely because it may never have existed at all. Its power lies not in buried ruins, but in the limitless landscape of imagination, a haunting reminder that some of history's most enduring ghosts are born not from stone, but from story. A spark of forgotten knowledge may have been found not in a library, but in a simple clay pot. In the 1930s, during excavations near Baghdad, archaeologists uncovered a collection of rather unassuming artifacts. Among them was a small, yellowish clay jar, roughly 5 inches tall, dating from the Parthian or Sasanian era. A period spanning from around 250 years before the Common Era to 650 years after. It appeared ordinary at first glance, but its contents told a different story. Inside the jar was a rolled copper sheet, forming a cylinder, and within that cylinder sat an iron rod. The top of the jar was sealed with a plug of asphalt or bitumen, which held both the rod and the cylinder firmly in place, insulated from each other. To any modern eye familiar with basic physics, the arrangement is instantly recognizable. It bears the fundamental design of a simple electrochemical cell. If the jar were filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common in the ancient world as vinegar or fermented grape juice, a chemical reaction would occur between the 2 dissimilar metals and the acidic solution. The result would be a small but measurable electric charge, a gentle flow of electrons from one terminal to the other. The potential voltage would be low, around 1 to 2 volts, but it would be real. This artifact, known now as the Baghdad Battery, presents a tantalizing and controversial question. Did certain societies in the Middle East, nearly 2,000 years ago, understand and harness the principles of electricity? The implications are staggering. If it was indeed a primitive battery, what was its purpose? One compelling theory suggests it could have been used for electroplating, the process of coating one metal with a thin layer of another, like putting a layer of gold onto a silver object. By connecting a series of these jars, one could produce a higher voltage sufficient for such a delicate task. This would explain the exquisite, thin gold plating found on some artifacts from the same region and period, work that modern experts sometimes struggle to replicate without electricity. Other theories propose medical or religious applications. Ancient texts from various cultures describe using electric fish to numb pain, suggesting an awareness of electricity's physiological effects. Perhaps the mild tingle from such a device was used in healing rituals or temple ceremonies, a mysterious sensation attributed to divine power. Skeptics, however, offer a more mundane explanation. They argue the jar could have been a secure storage container for valuable papyrus or parchment scrolls. The iron rod would have been a convenient spindle to roll the scroll around, the copper cylinder a protective case, and the asphalt seal a way to keep out moisture and decay. This is a perfectly plausible interpretation, and it highlights the core dilemma of archaeology. Without a written manual or a clear depiction of the object in use, we are left to interpret silent artifacts through the lens of our own knowledge. The controversy surrounding the Baghdad Battery is a perfect case study in how we reconstruct the past. We project our understanding onto ancient objects, sometimes seeing technological brilliance where there was only practical storage. Yet, the alternative is equally profound. If it was a battery, it represents a path not taken. It suggests a sporadic, isolated flash of insight into a fundamental force of nature, an understanding that never connected to other ideas, never sparked a wider revolution, and was never woven into the fabric of that society's technological development. It was a single, quiet note of potential in the symphony of history, a note that faded away without ever becoming part of the melody. This artifact forces us to consider how much knowledge is born and lost in isolation, a single curious mind's discovery that, without the right conditions to spread, simply vanishes back into the earth, waiting centuries for another culture to dig it up and wonder what might have been. Beneath the quiet ponds of a Chinese village lay a secret of staggering ambition. In 1992, farmers in Zhejiang province decided to drain a series of local ponds, expecting to find perhaps a few old stones or a natural spring. What they uncovered instead belief. The water had concealed the entrance to a colossal, hand-carved underground world. This was the first glimpse of the caves, a network of at least 24 enormous artificial grottos carved deep into the solid sandstone. Stepping inside is like entering the hall of a forgotten, subterranean cathedral. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Some of the caverns are over 100 feet high, with towering pillars left in place to support the ceiling, grand staircases descending into shadow and vast. Flat walls and ceilings that meet at perfect 90-degree angles, but the true mark of their mystery is etched onto every single surface. From floor to ceiling, the walls are covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, a meticulous, rhythmic texture of straight lines, as if applied by a single giant comb. This is not the rough work of a simple quarry. This is a statement of obsessive precision, repeated across millions of square feet of stone. Dating suggests they were created over 2,000 years ago, around the time of the Qin or Han dynasties. The sheer volume of rock removed is the first staggering puzzle. To create this complex, ancient workers would have had to excavate nearly 1 million cubic meters of stone. That is enough material to build 30 Great Pyramids of Giza. Yet in a civilization known for its meticulous record-keeping, there is not a single historical document, imperial edict, or local legend that mentions the construction of this underground metropolis. Even more baffling, archaeologists have found no trace of the excavated material itself. Where did all that sandstone go? There are no massive spoil heaps in the surrounding landscape, no roads worn down by endless carts hauling away rubble. The tools used to create such uniform markings have also vanished without a trace. The caves are an architectural ghost, a monument that seems to have been built and then deliberately erased from history. So what possible purpose could justify such a silent, titanic effort? One theory suggests they were an imperial quarry, providing stone for grand building projects elsewhere. The uniform markings could be a side effect of a highly efficient, systematic extraction process. Yet the elaborate design with pillars, stairs, and decorated ceilings feels unnecessarily artistic for a simple mine. Another idea proposes they were secret ceremonial spaces or tombs for royalty, designed to be hidden and sealed forever. The complete absence of any artifacts, inscriptions, or burial goods within them, however, leaves this theory hollow. Perhaps the most haunting possibility is that we are looking at a project that was simply never finished. The builders may have stopped for reasons lost to time, leaving their colossal, empty halls to slowly fill with groundwater, hiding their work for two. The caves challenge our very understanding of ancient large-scale projects. They represent a labor of generations, executed with breathtaking uniformity, only to be abandoned by history itself. They ask us a profound question. Is it possible for a civilization to commit 1,000,000 acts of labor to a purpose so specific, so vital to its identity, that when that purpose vanished, the very memory of the work could be wiped clean? The caves stand as a silent testament not to what was built, but to how completely a human intention, no matter how grand, can be swallowed by the earth and by time. A single sheet of parchment, drawn in the year 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer, carries a weight of speculation far beyond its size. This fragment of a larger world map, discovered in the Palace Library in Istanbul in 1929, is a stunning work of art and precision for its era. It shows the known world of the time with remarkable detail, charting the western coast of Africa and the eastern coast of South America with an accuracy that would have required exceptional navigational data. But it is the map's southern edge that ignites a firestorm of controversy. Below the Atlantic, the chart depicts a strange, rough landmass, its coastline flowing in a way that, to some modern eyes, bears an uncanny resemblance to the northern coastline of Antarctica. A continent that would not be officially discovered for another 300 years. The implications are staggering. Antarctica has been buried under miles of ice for millions of years. Its true coastline has only been mapped in the 20th century using sonar and radar, peering beneath the ice sheet. So how could a 16th century Ottoman admiral possibly have charted it? Himself provided a clue in the extensive notes he wrote on the map. He stated plainly that he was not the original author of this geographical knowledge. He was a compiler, drawing from a collection of about 20 older source charts, some of which he claimed dated back to the time of Alexander the Great in the 4th century before the Common Era. He even referenced a map drawn by Christopher Columbus, suggesting he had access to the most cutting-edge, and perhaps lost, exploratory records of his day. This admission opens a door to a breathtaking possibility. Could the map be a palimpsest, a later copy that preserves fragments of ancient cartography from a civilization with global seafaring knowledge? A culture that might have mapped the world before the last great ice age claimed its final continent. Proponents of this view point to the map's seemingly advanced mathematical projection and its accurate placement of longitudes, a feat notoriously difficult for early navigators. They see it as a smoking gun, evidence of a lost golden age of exploration erased by time and cataclysm. Mainstream scholarship, however, offers a different and more grounded interpretation. Historians of cartography note that the idea of a great southern continent, a terra, was a common feature on maps from this period, a theoretical landmass believed to balance the continents of the northern hemisphere. The shape on the map, they argue, is likely this speculative continent, distorted by artistic license, the limitations of his sources, and the common practice of filling blank spaces with conjectural geography. It could also be a badly mangled representation of the southern tip of South America, or a composite of various sailors' reports of southern lands. The resemblance to Antarctica's subglacial coastline, they suggest, is a coincidence, a test where we see what we want to see with our modern knowledge. This debate is about more than coastlines. It is a profound meditation on the fragility of knowledge itself. If ancient sources did exist, where are they now? They would have been on perishable materials, stored in libraries that burned, or discarded when their information seemed obsolete. The map is a haunting reminder that history is not just the story of what was recorded, but the story of what was lost, discarded, or misunderstood. It represents a single, fragile thread, connecting us to a web of older understandings that may have been far more complex than we assume. The true mystery of the map may not be whether it shows Antarctica, but whether it is a tantalizing glimpse of a vast, sunken library of human discovery. A library whose last surviving page we are still struggling to decipher. These intricate joins between stone are echoed on a much grander, more imposing scale high in the Andes. The fortress looms over the ancient Inca capital of, a sprawling complex of ramps, terraces, and most famously, 3 immense, zigzagging walls that stretch for hundreds of feet. Constructed in the 15th century under the reign of the Inca emperor, this was far more than a military stronghold. It was a statement of power, a sacred site, and an engineering marvel that continues to humble modern builders. The walls are composed of colossal limestone blocks, some weighing well over 100 tons, each one a unique, irregular polygon. They look like a giant's jigsaw puzzle, with interlocking pieces of dizzying size. The true miracle is in the fit. The stones are shaped so precisely that they join together seamlessly without any mortar. The contact is so tight that, as the local guides famously demonstrate, not even a razor blade can be inserted between them. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, created structures of incredible stability, perfectly engineered to withstand the violent earthquakes that frequently shake the region. The stones would shift and settle during a tremor, then lock back into place, a dynamic system far more resilient than rigid, mortared construction. But how was this achieved with the technology available to the Inca? They are known to have used harder stones like basalt and diorite to shape softer limestone, along with bronze tools which are relatively soft compared to the rock. The prevailing theory involves a meticulous process of trial and error. Stonemasons would have painstakingly pounded and abraded the edges of each block, repeatedly test-fitting it against its neighbor, slowly grinding the surfaces to a perfect match over countless hours. Some researchers suggest they may have used sand as an abrasive to polish the contact points to a mirror-like finish. Yet, the scale and speed of construction remain baffling. How were these titanic stones, from sites miles away, transported up steep mountain slopes without the wheel or draft animals? Oral traditions speak of thousands of workers pulling the blocks with ropes, sliding them on earthen ramps and log rollers, a feat of coordinated labor that must have been a spectacle in itself. Beyond the how lies the deeper question of why. The zigzag design of the primary walls is unusual for a fortress. Some scholars see in their form the teeth of a puma, with representing the animal's head in the sacred puma-shaped layout of. Others propose a profound astronomical purpose. The angles and shadows cast by the walls on the solstices may have created a giant calendar or a symbolic representation of lightning, a powerful force associated with the Inca sky god. In this light, the fortress was not just a shield against human enemies, but a cosmic interface, a place where the earthly power of the Inca met and mirrored the divine order of the heavens. The stones are more than a puzzle of construction. They are a testament to a worldview where engineering, spirituality, and art were inseparable. Each perfectly fitted joint speaks of a society that valued harmony, patience, and a deep, intimate conversation with the very bones of the earth, shaping mountains into monuments meant to last for eternity. Deep within the dark stone corridors of the Hathor Temple a set of carvings flickers with an idea that seems to belong to a different age. On the temple walls, carved around 100 years before the Common Era, are a series of curious reliefs. They show large, elongated objects that bear a startling resemblance to modern light bulbs. Inside each bulbous shape winds a snake, its body held aloft by a pillar, while a cable-like tube connects the base of the device to a box held by a kneeling figure. To a contemporary eye, the composition is unmistakable. It looks like an ancient electrical apparatus, complete with a filament, a bulb, wires, and a power source. This is the heart of the so-called light theory, a provocative suggestion that the ancient Egyptians might have harnessed a form of electricity for illumination. Proponents point to the absence of soot in many deep underground tombs and temples, asking how intricate artwork could have been completed in total darkness. Could these carvings be a literal blueprint for a lost technology? Mainstream Egyptology offers a different, deeply symbolic interpretation. Scholars identify the objects not as bulbs, but as stylized lotus flowers, a sacred plant in Egyptian mythology representing creation and rebirth. The snake emerging from the flower is the god, a manifestation of the sun god, depicted in his serpent form. The pillar is the pillar, a symbol of stability, and the box is a divine womb from which the snake is born. The entire scene is a complex cosmological diagram, illustrating the moment of creation where light and life emerge from the primordial waters, using the familiar visual language of their faith. There is no archaeological evidence, no physical bulbs or batteries found at or anywhere else in Egypt to support the technological reading. Yet, the power of the image persists. It forces a fascinating question about perspective. Are we, as modern people surrounded by technology, projecting our own inventions onto ancient symbolism? Or is it possible that certain advanced concepts were expressed through the only symbolic vocabulary available to them, encoded in myth and ritual, because the language of engineering did not yet exist? The carvings challenge us to hold two possibilities in mind. The first is that human creativity in storytelling and spiritual expression can produce imagery of breathtaking sophistication, imagery that coincidentally mirrors future inventions. The second, more haunting possibility is that our current understanding of the past is a translation, and sometimes a translation can lose the original meaning entirely. We may be looking at a sacred text, written in stone, and reading it as a technical manual, missing the profound spiritual truth it was meant to convey while perhaps overlooking a different, quieter kind of genius altogether. Its message was carved not in cryptic symbols, but in clear, modern English. In 1980, a set of stark granite slabs appeared in a remote field in County, Georgia. The Georgia stood nearly 20 feet tall, a sleek, modern Stonehenge for the 20th century. On these tablets were inscribed 10 directives, presented as a guide for an age of reason. The guidelines, written in 8 major world languages and etched in 4 ancient scripts including Babylonian cuneiform and Classical Greek, called for things like guiding reproduction wisely to improve fitness and diversity, uniting humanity with a living new language, and ruling passion, faith, and tradition with tempered reason. But the first and most controversial guideline was a stark numerical command: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. This was a vision for a future society, one that had a drastic reduction from the global population of the time, which was already nearing 4.5 billion. The monument's origin was as enigmatic as its message. It was commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, a name he said paid homage to the legendary founder of the Rosicrucian order, a mystical Christian sect. He paid for the project in cash through a local bank, and the true identity of him and his group has never been. They provided detailed granite blueprints and then vanished back into obscurity, leaving the stones to speak for themselves. For decades, they were a physical test. To some, they were a noble, if severe, blueprint for ecological sustainability and global harmony after a hypothetical future catastrophe. To others, they represented a chilling agenda for population control, a monument to elitist and anti-human ideals. This duality made them a pilgrimage site for conspiracy theorists, environmentalists, and the simply curious. Then, in 2022, the mystery took a violent turn. An explosion partially destroyed the monument, and the remaining structure was later fully dismantled for safety reasons. The physical enigma was erased, but the questions it raised only grew louder. The Georgia present a unique kind of historical puzzle because they are not ancient. Their creation is documented in living memory, yet the central who and why remain stubbornly opaque. This shifts the mystery from archaeological deduction to an investigation of modern ideology and anonymity. Was it an elaborate art project designed to provoke conversation about humanity's future? Was it a genuine attempt by a secretive group to leave instructions for a post-crisis civilization, a message in a bottle meant to be read centuries later? Or was it something else entirely? Unlike the silent stones of Easter Island or the faded glyphs of, they used the clear language of our time to ask profoundly unsettling questions about limits, balance, and survival. Their power lies in this uncomfortable clarity. They prove that enigmas are not confined to the misty depths of antiquity. They can be manufactured, erected in a Georgia cow field within our own lifetimes, and still leave us wondering, long after the last slab is gone, what kind of future their builders truly envisioned. And what they feared we were too blind to see on our own. While the Georgia offered a cryptic guide to the future, another scroll was buried with secrets from a sacred past. Among the legendary Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in caves near the ancient settlement of Qumran, one document is utterly unique. It is not written on fragile parchment or papyrus. It is etched into thin, corroded sheets of copper, a material chosen not for convenience, but for permanence. Known simply as the Copper Scroll, this artifact dates to the 1st century of the Common Era, a turbulent time in. Its text is a stark inventory, a list of over 60 specific locations. But this is no ordinary ledger. It describes, in meticulous detail, caches of unimaginable wealth. It mentions vast quantities of gold and silver, along with precious incense and scrolls, hidden in caves, tombs, and near geographic landmarks like pools and ruins. The amounts are precise and staggering, tallying a treasure that would be worth hundreds of millions in today's terms, a fortune belonging to the Second Temple in Jerusalem. The instructions are cryptic, referencing places like the Salt Pit or the ruin that is in the valley, landmarks that have lost their meaning over too. If this scroll is a literal map, it points to the greatest undiscovered treasure in history, a sacred hoard possibly hidden in the frantic days before the Roman legions destroyed the temple in the year 70. Yet, despite numerous expeditions and searches inspired by its clues, not a single significant deposit from the list has ever been recovered. This complete absence of physical evidence fuels a deep mystery. Is the Copper Scroll a genuine treasure map, its bounty still lying undiscovered in the harsh desert, or is it something else entirely? Some scholars propose it is an allegorical text, a symbolic record of spiritual wealth rather than material treasure. Others suggest it might be a record of the temple's treasury, an administrative document never meant to be a field guide, its locations now impossible to decode. The choice of copper itself is the most compelling clue. In a culture that wrote on perishable materials, The immense effort required to hammer and inscribe this message on metal signifies one thing. The authors intended this message to endure for ages. They were not writing a story or a prayer. They were creating a durable record, a time capsule of vital information meant to outlast wars and empires. This transforms the scroll from a simple list into a profound and lasting riddle. It asks us to consider what a society, facing its own imminent destruction, chooses to preserve in a form meant to defy time. Was it the location of its physical wealth, hoping for a future restoration? Or was the act of creating the record itself the true treasure, a final, defiant act of memory etched in enduring metal, ensuring that even if the gold was lost, the story of its existence would never be across the channel from Stonehenge, lies a different kind of megalithic order. In the windswept landscape of Brittany, France, the Carnac Alignments present a spectacle not of circles, but of relentless lines. Here, over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones march across the countryside in dense, parallel rows that stretch for miles, a vast geometric army frozen in time. These granite menhirs, erected by Neolithic communities beginning around 4,500 years before the Common Era, vary from knee-high markers to towering pillars over 13 feet tall. Unlike the curated complexity of Stonehenge, the Carnac stones embody a different principle, one of breathtaking repetition and scale. To walk among them is to feel a rhythm imposed upon the earth, a rhythm whose beat has been lost for. The most haunting question is not about how they were placed, though moving these granite sentinels was a monumental feat of communal labor. It is about why. What vision required such an overwhelming, landscape-altering statement? One of the leading theories casts the rows as a sophisticated astronomical calendar. Certain alignments point toward the sunrise at the solstices, suggesting the stones could have been used to mark critical points in the agricultural year, turning the entire field into a giant, seasonal clock. Others propose they served as territorial markers for different clans, a permanent and undeniable claim etched into the very soil. More speculative ideas suggest the stones, planted deep into the ground, could have functioned as a primitive seismic detector, with the aligned menhirs vibrating to give early warning of earthquakes. Local folklore offers a more narrative explanation, a story that speaks to the human need to explain the inexplicable. Legend says the stones are a Roman legion, petrified by the wizard Merlin as they pursued him across Brittany. This tale transforms an eerie silence into a dramatic story, giving a face and a reason to the stone's regimented order. Yet archaeology reveals no evidence of conflict, no remains of a great battle. The truth is likely rooted in something more profound than war or wizardry. The sheer, sustained effort across generations indicates a purpose central to the identity and survival of the community. This was not a project of kings, but of a collective will. The alignments may have been a sacred space for rituals connecting the people to their ancestors and the cycles of nature, a physical manifestation of their worldview where order, memory, and the land were inextricably linked. The Carnac stones do not whisper their secrets like the inscribed walls of a temple. They shout them in a language of pure geometry and silent endurance. They remind us that some of humanity's most powerful statements are made without a single written word, using only the earth itself as a canvas and stone as the pen. We are left to walk their endless rows, hearing only the wind where once there must have been ceremony, understanding only the shape of a faith whose content has vanished into the deep well of time. A sacred chest of gold and acacia would once stood at the very heart of an ancient faith. According to the Hebrew Bible, the Ark of the Covenant was far more than a religious artifact. It was a vessel believed to contain the stone tablets inscribed with the Ten Commandments, and more profoundly, to hold the tangible presence of the divine. For the Israelites, it was the ultimate symbol of their covenant, carried before them into battle and housed within the inner sanctum of the first temple in Jerusalem, a place so holy only the high priest could enter. And only once a year. Then, history turns a silent page. Following the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 587 before the Common Era, the temple was looted and destroyed. Detailed Babylonian records list treasures taken, but the Ark is conspicuously absent from those inventories. From that moment, the most sacred object of a people simply vanishes from the historical record, leaving behind a void filled with legend, longing, and relentless speculation. Where could it have gone? One enduring theory suggests it was never taken at all. Foreseeing the invasion, priests of the temple could have secreted the Ark away into a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers deep beneath the Temple Mount itself, a hiding place so effective it remains undiscovered to this day. This idea fuels countless searches and theories, yet the political and religious sensitivity of the site makes any definitive archaeological investigation impossible. Another compelling thread leads to Africa. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has long claimed the Ark resides within the chapel of the tablet, adjacent to the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion Inn. They believe it was brought to Ethiopia by the first, the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, and has been guarded by a single, consecrated monk for centuries. While the object is never shown to the public, the depth of this tradition and the reverence surrounding the site offer a powerful narrative of preservation, far from the conflicts of the Holy Land. Other scholars propose a more tragic, mundane fate. Perhaps the golden chest was simply melted down for its precious materials by the conquering Babylonians, its form lost forever, its spiritual significance meaningless to the plunderers. Or maybe it was lost during the chaotic transport back to Babylon, discarded or destroyed along the way. The complete absence of any physical evidence, after so many centuries of searching, lends a somber weight to this possibility. The mystery of the Ark endures not for lack of theories, but because of what the object represents. It transcends archaeology to touch the core of faith and identity. For believers, its disappearance is a profound theological question, a physical manifestation of the divine that was entrusted to humanity and then seemingly withdrawn from history. For historians, it is the ultimate cold case, a relic of immeasurable cultural significance that left no verifiable trace. This duality is the source of its power. The Ark is a symbol of absolute presence that became an absolute absence, a tangible object that now exists most powerfully in the realm of story and belief. Its enduring legacy is a testament to the human need for a focal point of the sacred, a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved with a spade, but are preserved in the silent space between faith and memory, forever out of reach, yet forever sought. The timeline of civilization, as we have long understood it, rests on a simple and logical foundation. First, humans learned to farm. Agriculture produced surplus food, which allowed people to settle in one place. These stable, growing communities then developed social hierarchies, specialized jobs, and finally, the spare time and resources to build monuments and temples. It is a clean, compelling story of progress. Then, in the arid, rocky hills of southeastern Turkey, a discovery was made that shattered this narrative entirely. It is not merely an ancient site. It is a profound anomaly, a deliberate and elegant riposte to our assumptions about human development. Carbon dating reveals its oldest rings of stone were erected around 9,600 years before the Common Era. This places its construction a staggering 6,000 years before Stonehenge, and most critically, thousands of years before the widespread adoption of agriculture. The people who built were not settled farmers living in a thriving village. They were hunter-gatherers, nomadic bands following herds of animals across the landscape, yet they achieved something that defies reason. They shaped and transported massive limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons from local quarries. They arranged these pillars into at least 20 circular enclosures, many featuring two larger T-shaped monoliths at their center, soaring over 16 feet tall, and they adorned these stones with breathtaking artistry. The surfaces are a menagerie of carved reliefs, a stone canvas depicting foxes, boars, cranes, scorpions, and lions in exquisite, dynamic detail. This was not crude marking. This was a monumental investment of labor and artistic vision by people who, according to all previous models, should have been solely preoccupied with day-to-day survival. The question hangs in the air, as heavy as the stones themselves: why? What compelled these nomadic people to come together, season after season, and pour their collective energy into building something with no apparent practical utility? One leading theory envisions, as a ritual center, a sacred destination for scattered bands who gathered at specific times of the year. The animal carvings may represent a spiritual world, totemic symbols of clans, or perhaps deities from a forgotten mythology. The act of construction itself could have been the central ritual, a communal endeavor that forged social bonds and shared identity far stronger than any permanent settlement. Other researchers see it as a form of early social media, a neutral ground for exchanging information, arranging marriages, and strengthening alliances across a wide territory. The sheer scale of the feast suggested by the animal bones found at the site points to massive periodic gatherings, turning construction into celebration. There are also intriguing astronomical alignments. Some of the enclosures seem oriented toward specific stars, suggesting the site may have served as a calendar, marking celestial events critical to the migratory patterns of the game they hunted. But perhaps the most revolutionary idea is the one forces upon us. For over a century, we believed monumentality was a product of agriculture. Suggests we may have it backwards. It proposes that the human drive to create something grand, to gather for ceremony and to express shared belief, might have been the original spark. The need to build and maintain a permanent ritual site-like could have created the necessity for a more stable, organized food supply. In this light, the desire to worship together, to carve meaning into stone, may have been the mother of invention, gently nudging humanity toward the domestication of plants and animals. This single site does not just add an earlier chapter to our story. It demands we rewrite the entire book, questioning the very motives that propelled us from wandering to building, and ultimately to becoming who we are today. The vast, dark floor of the Baltic Sea is a world of sediment and silence, a place where history is buried under mud. In the summer of 2011, a team of Swedish researchers using side-scan sonar to survey a shipwreck made a startling discovery. Their screen displayed a sonar image that immediate explanation. Resting on the over 260 feet below the surface was a nearly perfect circular object measuring roughly 200 feet across. Its shape was so distinct, so geometric against the soft contours of the seabed that it looked artificial. With a thick, cylindrical column rising from its center and what appeared to be a long, trailing track behind it, the image ignited instant speculation. Was this the wreck of a modern craft, a bizarre glacial rock formation, or something far more extraordinary? Dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, This single sonar ping launched a modern mystery that rivals any ancient enigma in its power to captivate. The treasure-hunting team, led by Peter, returned for a closer look. Divers reported strange phenomena, including electronic equipment malfunctioning when they approached the object and camera batteries draining unexpectedly. They brought back samples and grainy footage that seemed to show a surface of constructed steps and right angles, with a texture resembling rough concrete or rock. Most intriguing was the object's appearance. It did not look like a random pile of stones. It resembled, to many eyes, the iconic shape of the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, a circular craft with a central cockpit. This visual echo alone was enough to fuel a firestorm of theories, from a sunken Nazi anti-submarine device to a genuine unidentified submerged object. The scientific community, however, urged caution. Geologists who examined the data proposed far more mundane explanations. They suggested the anomaly is most likely a glacial erratic, a giant boulder deposited by a retreating ice-age glacier thousands of years ago. Others posited it could be an outcrop of pillow basalt, a volcanic rock that forms rounded shapes when lava cools underwater. The strange electronic interference reported by divers could be explained by natural magnetic variations from the dense mineral content of the rock itself. Yet for every point of skepticism, a question remains. Natural formations are rarely so perfectly circular. The surrounding track, likened to a runway or a skid mark, suggests the object moved or was dragged across the seabed, a phenomenon difficult to reconcile with a simple stationary boulder. The Baltic Sea Anomaly represents a fascinating new category of historical puzzle, one born not from a dusty excavation, but from the glow of a digital screen. It is a mystery delivered by technology, proving that our advanced tools do not always provide immediate answers. Sometimes, they simply give us a clearer view of the questions we have yet to ask. This object, whether a trick of geology or a relic of a forgotten chapter, forces a humbling realization. We have mapped the surfaces of distant planets in greater detail than our own ocean floors. The deep sea remains the last great frontier on Earth, a sunless archive holding secrets we are only beginning to glimpse. The anomaly's true significance may not be in what it is, but in what it symbolizes. It is a modern test projected onto the seabed, reflecting our enduring desire to find pattern and purpose in the unknown, a silent, circular enigma waiting in the dark. Reminding us that wonder is not confined to the past, but is still being discovered, one sonar ping at a time. The deep sea's capacity for mystery is not confined to the sonar shadows of the Baltic. In the crystalline waters off the westernmost tip of Japan, another submerged giant waits, its form so startling it seems to demand a creator. The monument rests on a colossal slab of sandstone that rises from the depths like a sunken citadel. Discovered by a local diver in the 1980s, this structure, if that is the right word, is a complex of breathtaking features. It presents vast, flat terraces that drop in clean, sequential levels. There are sharp, straight edges meeting at precise 90-degree angles, deep, parallel grooves that look like carved channels, and towering pillars that stand like weathered sentinels. Two massive, rectangular columns even face each other across a narrow gap, an arrangement that feels too orderly for chance. To the trained eye of marine geologist who has studied the site for decades, these are not random shapes. He points to what appear to be staircases with consistent step heights, a star-shaped platform, and even carved reliefs resembling animal forms. For and his supporters, the conclusion is inescapable. This is a man-made complex, perhaps a ceremonial pyramid or a fortress, constructed by a prehistoric culture when this area was above water, over 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, before rising seas claimed it. If true, this single site would upend our understanding of Pacific prehistory, suggesting a sophisticated, seafaring civilization capable of monumental architecture in an era we have long considered primitive. Yet the ocean floor is a master sculptor, and geology offers a powerful counter-narrative. Skeptics, including many prominent geologists, walk through the same formations and see something entirely different. They observe the natural bedding planes of sandstone, which often fracture along straight lines, creating the illusion of carved blocks. They point to the relentless force of tidal currents, which can scour parallel channels into the rock over. The tectonic activity in this volatile region, they argue, can fracture stone into startlingly geometric forms. The so-called staircase could simply be a series of harder rock layers eroding at different rates, while the pillars might be the resilient remnants left standing after softer material washed away. This is the profound dilemma of it exists in a liminal space where the human instinct to see pattern and intention clashes directly with the awe-inspiring, indifferent artistry of natural forces. The debate hinges on a question that is deceptively simple, yet maddeningly complex. How do you definitively distinguish the hand of a human architect from the patient, chaotic chisel of water, pressure, and time? There are no pottery shards littering the site, no ancient tools wedged in the crevices. There is only the silent, imposing rock itself, and our own interpretations projected onto its water-smoothed surfaces. This underwater enigma, therefore, is more than a puzzle about origins. It is a meditation on perception. It forces us to confront the stories we tell ourselves about the past and the evidence we require to believe them. To declare artificial is to accept a grand, romantic narrative of a lost world. To see it as natural is to appreciate the profound and subtle power of planetary processes. Perhaps the most honest answer lies in a middle ground, a possibility that the truth is not a binary choice. Could the monument have begun as a striking natural formation that was later discovered and modified by ancient people? A naturally terraced rock shelf might have been enhanced with carved steps or channels, turning a geological wonder into a sacred site. This blending of the natural and the human would reflect a worldview where the landscape itself was alive with meaning, a canvas to be acknowledged and accentuated, not conquered. Does not offer easy answers. It lingers in the blue twilight, a riddle written in stone and water, challenging us to wonder not just about what was built, but about how we see. And what we are willing to recognize as a message from a world that slipped beneath the waves. These scattered enigmas are more than isolated riddles. When we step back to view them as a whole, a profound pattern emerges, a chorus of silent voices asking the same unsettling questions about who we are and where we came from. One overwhelming theme is the relentless human drive to create something that outlasts us. From the pyramids from the endless rows at Carnac to the hidden halls of, we see civilizations investing staggering resources into monuments with no practical survival value. This was not a luxury born from surplus. At places like, it appears to have been the very catalyst for society itself. The message carved in stone across is clear. We are a species compelled to make marks, to reshape the world into forms that carry meaning, to speak to the future in a language of geometry and endurance. This drive transcends mere utility. It is a declaration of existence, an attempt to forge a dialogue with eternity itself. Equally powerful is the haunting theme of fragility. For every monolithic achievement, there is a counterpoint of silence. The manuscript is a book full of words no one can read. The lost colony is a community that left only a carved word before vanishing. The precise techniques for moving the stones of Easter Island were not preserved in manuals, but in oral traditions that eventually faded. These gaps remind us that knowledge is not a steadily growing pile. It is a fragile, flickering flame, passed from hand to hand and generation to generation, vulnerable to war, disaster, or simple forgetting. The complete disappearance of the purpose behind the caves, or the source maps for, shows how entire libraries of understanding can evaporate, leaving behind only physical shells that mock our curiosity. Our history is not the complete story of the past. It is only the story of what managed to survive the relentless filter of time. This collective evidence consistently challenges the comforting, linear narrative of human progress. We often imagine history as a steady climb from simple to complex, from primitive to advanced. Yet these mysteries present a far messier, more interesting picture. The mechanism suggests a peak of mechanical genius that was later lost. The Baghdad Battery hints at a spark of electrochemical insight that never caught fire, turns the entire sequence of civilization on its head, proposing that temple building may have come before towns. These are not mere anomalies. They are signposts pointing to a different map of human development, one with multiple peaks and valleys, with technologies and ideas that flowered in isolation and then withered. Independent of the main trunk of the story we tell ourselves. They suggest that sophistication is not a permanent state, but a condition that can be achieved, forgotten, and rediscovered in different forms across the ages. Ultimately, these 20 mysteries serve a purpose far greater than feeding speculation. They are essential correctives to our intellectual arrogance. In an age of satellites and artificial intelligence, it is easy to view the past with a sense of patronizing superiority. We assume we have unraveled the basic contours of the human journey. These puzzles stand as a firm rebuke to that assumption. They remind archaeologists and historians that their field is dynamic, that every answer is provisional, and that the next shovel of earth or scan of the could upend a century of settled belief. For all of us, they cultivate a vital humility. They show that our modern scientific toolkit, for all its power, has limits when confronted with the full, strange spectrum of human ingenuity, belief, and experience. The past refuses to be a passive subject. Through these silent stones and cryptic texts, it remains an active participant in a conversation, constantly asking us to reconsider what we think we know and to embrace the beautiful. Unsettling truth that history's greatest secret may be how much of it we have yet to truly discover. From the gears of that ancient computer to the submerged steps of a forgotten monument, these 20 mysteries form a chorus of silent questions echoing across time. They do not simply ask what or how. They ask something far more profound about us. They challenge the quiet arrogance of the present, the assumption that our current understanding is the final word on human capability. Each unexplained artifact, each silent monolith, is a testament to the fact that our ancestors were not primitive figures stumbling toward our brilliance. They were innovators, artists, and engineers capable of conceptual leaps and physical wonders we still struggle to fully comprehend with all our modern tools. This is not a failure of science. It is its greatest inspiration. The march of science continues to offer us new lenses, from ground-penetrating radar to satellite archaeology, allowing us to ask better questions of these old stones and faded texts. Yet, we must also accept a beautiful and humbling truth. Some of these secrets may forever linger just beyond our definitive grasp, their original meanings lost to the deep well of time. And perhaps that is part of their enduring power. A mystery solved is a case closed, a chapter ended, but an enduring enigma remains alive. It continues to spark debate, to fuel imagination, and to drive the next generation of explorers, both professional and amateur, to look at the world with a little more wonder. These puzzles connect us, across centuries, to the timeless human quest for understanding. They remind us that curiosity is our most valuable inheritance, and that the map of the past is still being drawn, with blank spaces that invite us to dream. We invite you to sit with these enigmas a little longer. Let your own curiosity be the guide. Research the theories that intrigue you most, from the astronomical alignments of ancient sites to the latest attempts to decode the script. The conversation does not end here. Share your own thoughts and perspectives in the comments below. Which mystery resonates with you the most and why? If this journey to the edges of the known has reminded you that history is the greatest story ever told and still being written, then consider subscribing. We delve deep into the puzzles of our world, seeking not just answers but better questions. Thank you for exploring with us.